I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having a fantastic Monday. I was down in South Florida all last week, as you can see. Got quite the tan playing the Live Golf Pro-Am on Thursday, as well as the Tunnel to Towers charity golf event on Monday. Frank Siller's organization raised over $2 million. I was glad, happy to be a part of that success. And let's see. I think we just had to fix the television there a bit. But had a amazing time there on Monday and on Thursday. Live golf down at Doral, the Big Green Monster Course. A lot of fun to play. We had the Final Four happen on Saturday. I'll break it all down for you. Florida-Houston is tonight. The Dodgers visited the White House. Dire Wolf back after 10,000 years. Stock market panic, I'll discuss. And a murder in Dallas, Texas has gotten a lot of attention. I'll break that down for you all and more. But I want to start with this. Prize Picks. America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with Prize Picks. It's you against the number. Spring is here. Baseball is underway. Unfortunately, my Atlanta Braves have started off 1-8, but you can get hooked up in Prize Picks with daily picks, more or less on your favorite players, on your favorite teams. And I have a pick for you on Monday night. That is tonight's championship going up between Florida and Texas, and I want to share all of this with you. Tonight at 8:50, I believe, Eastern time, such a late tip, although they bumped it down from 9:20, which is when I think it used to be Eastern. Walter Clayton Jr., more than 14.5 points. LJ Cryer, more than 1.5 threes made. Elijah Martin, more than 1.5 threes made, and Emmanuel Sharp, more than 1.5 threes made. These are Houston and Florida basketball players. These all have a blue diamond beside them, which means that they are more likely to happen. You have to click more on all of these. And if I am right and this pick hits, then you will nearly triple your money. A $10 bet will pay back $26. And so $10 to pay 26, a little bit less than 3-1 if we are right breaking all of that down. Now, you can download the app today. You can play Prize Picks in California. You can play it in Georgia. You can play it in Florida. You can play it in California. 13 million players. And when you play, you get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is prizepicks.com, code OutKick. $5 plays get you $50 instantly. Prizepicks.com, code OutKick. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, what do we think is going to happen tonight? To me, I think the Florida Gators are going to win this game outright because I told you before the tournament started that I was picking the Florida Gators because I thought they were the best team in the SEC all season, not the best team in November, December, January, but the best team by the end of the year. And I picked Florida, Auburn, Tennessee, and Duke to be in my Final Four. Houston obviously won, beat Tennessee. I was wrong about that one. My Final Four was Florida, Tennessee, and I had Florida winning my championship game. I had Florida over Auburn, was right about that one. I thought Houston would keep it close against Duke, was right about that one. We'll talk about that in a moment. But I like the Florida Gators to cover the 1.5 and cut down the nets in San Antonio to later tonight. I'm going to be watching. I think a lot of credit to Houston. Kelvin Sampson's team has been warriors. And I want to talk for a minute about the way that game went down on Saturday night. Like many of you I was watching, I think it is simultaneously the best ever comeback I've seen and the worst collapse that I have ever seen. And if you asked me and told me, hey, Clay, you have to rank it, was it more of an excellent comeback or more of a choke collapse? I think it was more of a choke collapse. Down the stretch, Duke had to do a lot to lose that basketball game. Think about this for a minute. Duke had the ball up 6 with about a minute to play. It should be impossible to lose a basketball game in that scenario. They were up 6 with 35 seconds to play. They had to turned the ball over on an inbounds play. They had to miss the front end of a 1-and-1. They had to miss a jumper. In fact, let me pull up I'll read it for you, all the things that had to go wrong for Duke to choke down the stretch of this game. To me, again, if you go back and look at this, I think it was more of a choke job by Duke than it was a tremendous performance by Houston. That doesn't mean that I don't think Kelvin Sampson's team deserves a tremendous amount of credit. But just listen to the play-by-play down the stretch in the final roughly minute of this game. First of all, Duke is up 5. They get the technical foul on Tugler for reaching across the boundary and hitting the basketball. Knippel hits the free throw, and it's 67-61 with 1:14 remaining. Okay, so you have a 6-point lead. You have the better team. I think it's fair to say Duke is a better team than Houston. Possession of the basketball, 1:14 left, up 6. You should never lose that basketball game. And I've got some data to prove how rare what happened to Duke was. But you're up 6 with possession. You get a block shot, if I remember correctly. Is that what happens on that drive? Knippel takes the ball inside, gets a block, if I remember it correctly. Kind of a missed layup, but I think it was more of a block than it was a missed layup. Then Sharp, who is deadly from outside when it comes to killer shots, drains a 3 to make it 67-64. All Duke has to do is then inbound the basketball, and they are in incredible position. Instead, they turn the ball over. Remember, Houston misses a 3 that would have tied it, gets the rebound, dunks it in, and it's now a 1-point game. They then foul Proctor with only 20 seconds left in the game. Proctor shouldn't have gotten the basketball, by the way, if you're Duke, because he's not a really high percentage free throw shooter. Proctor misses the front end of his make sure that I'm right, by the way, about Proctor's free throw percentage this year. I think I'm correct in that. Misses the front end, and then Duke fans are mad because the foul was called on Cooper Flagg. I think that's a 50-50 play, right? Ball's up in the air, but when I watched it live, I was like, yeah, I think he went over the back. I think that's a foul. It wasn't an egregious foul, but it was a foul, in my opinion. But even if you disagree, you still missed the front end of the 1-and-1. You've still had the turnover, right? So in that scenario, you then foul, I think the guy who got fouled, Jawan Roberts, I think he was only like a 60% free throw shooter. He's also shooting 1-and-1. He comes back down, drains both of those free throws. There's still 17 seconds left. Duke is only down 1 point. They have plenty of time to draw up a play, and you have a situation where Cooper Flagg, I think, got a pretty good look, misses it, leaves it short. Houston gets the rebound, gets fouled, and they go on to win the game 70-67. Duke gets outscored 9-0 down the final basically 45 seconds of the game. Pretty unbelievable. So I think Houston deserves an immense amount of credit. But if you ask me, was it a bigger choke job by Duke or a bigger clutch performance by Houston? To me, Duke choked more than Houston clutched it out. That's the way that I would break down. Now, got to say, I kind of got this right. I said that the only way to beat Duke, 68%, by the way, Proctor on the season. I said the only way to beat Duke was to be in a situation where you end up taking them into a tight game down the stretch, defensive struggle. Now, the over hit by a tiny margin in this game, but Houston did what I thought they had to do to beat Duke. Styles make fights. Duke should have won, but unlike Alabama, which came out and tried to run with Duke, which I think is a losing proposition, Houston did what I think Tennessee would have done if Houston hadn't run them. That is, try to play a sort of balanced, big-time defensive struggle game. Take them down into the mud with you. Don't let their guys run the floor at full speed. Duke only made one basket in the final 10 minutes, so I think not having played a lot of tight games, Duke had an average margin of victory, I believe, over 20 points. And when they got into this phone booth-style game, this tight battle, they hadn't had a lot of reps needing to have baskets. They hadn't really prepared themselves for possessing the basketball and what it was like to be in a scenario such as this. And I think all that caught up with them. Houston found a way to win. Now, tonight, I think Florida is the bigger, better, deeper team. And I think they will have a lot of success inside, offensively rebounding the basketball against Houston. And I think Houston will come back down to earth a little bit when it comes to their outside shooting. And frankly, the reason why I picked Florida was I think Walter Clayton Jr. is the best out there when it comes to clutch performance. We saw what he did down the stretch against Texas Tech. I just think when you need a bucket, and in big games you need a bucket getter, that Walter Clayton is that guy. By the way, I mentioned that Duke, I was going to give you a crazy stat. Duke is the only team to have an NCAA tournament game where they have a higher field goal percentage, more free throw attempts, more assists, fewer turnovers, and more steals to lose in the NCAA tournament since 1986. Teams with those record attributes had been 335-0 when doing all of that in the tournament up to this point. So that is pretty incredible that we would end up in a scenario such as this. Congratulations to Houston. Looking forward to watching tonight, but I like the Florida Gators. Okay, I think this is significant, and I know OutKick was covering it. The Dodgers went to the White House today, and I want to give credit. Mookie Betts, Dodgers star player, came out and said that he regretted skipping the Dodgers White House visit in 2017, and that's why he was going here in 2025 because, and I'm paraphrasing him, he said it's not about him, it's about the team. And he got a special shout-out and handshake from the President of the United States, Donald Trump, today. I know OutKick was covering it. We're going to be covering this one, the Ohio State game, as well, the Ohio State visit to the White House, as well as the Eagles visit to the White House, all of which are happening in April. But the Dodgers at the White House, to me, this is similar to what's going to happen with the Eagles, which is we're going to get back to some form of normalcy. American sports fans are over the hardcore politicization of the sports universe. And I think Mookie Betts reversing himself, I give credit. Look, if you decide that a choice you made was wrong and you want to rectify it, I actually think that's a sign of being a grown person. Every decision you make is not going to be perfect. As you age, you can change the decisions that you made and change the way that that you wish things had gone. And I think the boycotting of the White House is effectively over. Now, does that mean that I think the WNBA champ's going to go to the White House? Probably not. Does that mean that I think the NBA champ is going to go to the White House? Well, that'll be an interesting test. But we know Major League Baseball, the NHL, the college football champions, college basketball champions, I would imagine, they're all going to go to the White House, visit the president. I've said this forever. I'll continue to say it. It's an honor to get to meet the president. It's an honor to be invited to the White House. I would have gone if Joe Biden had invited me. I would have gone if Barack Obama had invited me. I've been with Trump having invited me. For the rest of my life, if I am invited to the White House by the President of the United States, I'm going to go. Some of you may disagree, but that's the perspective I would take, whether it's Democrat, Republican, Independent Party, we don't even know now in the future. Whoever it is that's going to the White House, in the White House, if I'm invited to go, I'll go. And so I think the Dodgers made the right decision. Shohei Ohtani going into the Oval Office in particular, I thought was a great moment. Shohei is the best player in Major League Baseball right now. There's video of Shohei visiting with Trump. Trump is a legitimately big sports fan. He watches most big sporting events, and I know he appreciated having the Dodgers at the White House. And again, we covered it at OutKick, and there will be a story up in the event that we go forward. So just kind of keep that in mind going forward. That OutKick will be there for all of the visits to the White House. Couple of other things that are out there. Stock market. Like, everybody is fired up about the stock market. Suddenly, I saw where Jim Cramer's like, it's going to be the worst day in the history of the... Look, my advice to all of you is the same advice I have been giving forever, right? Buy dips. Go back and look at everything that I said during COVID. By the way, I was 100% right. You can go pull it back in 2020. I said it was an all-time buying opportunity. I had money on the sidelines. I put more in. I'm always going to be long United States stocks. And what I do with my money, I sold OutKick several years ago, got a lot of money, rolled it into S&P 500 index funds. By and large, I have about 10% of my money in individual stocks. Try to just be transparent with you, tell you exactly where I've got my money. I've got my money. These are the individual stocks that I own right now. And many of them I've owned for a long time. WWE turned into TKO, right? I told you forever ago, go buy WWE stock and hold it. I still own TKO. I own DraftKings. I've owned it for a long time. I own Flutter, which is the parent company of the FanDuel. I've owned it for a long time. I own Fox stock. I've owned it since I sold OutKick to Fox. I own stock in Rush Street Interactive. It's another sports gambling company, and I own stock in the Atlanta Braves. Okay, those are the individual stocks that I own. You say, okay, Clay, why do you own individual stocks? I think I understand sports media and gambling companies better than the average person does. And so I have about, 10% of my overall stocks. That's probably low. Maybe even a lower percentage than that, but around 10% of my total stock holdings in individual stocks. The other 90% of my money is in S&P 500 index funds. And so people out there are like, I'm losing my mind. What am I going to do? The stock market right now is virtually the exact same price as it was last year at this time. Okay? On average, the stock market is going to return about 8 or 9% a year. That's on average, S&P 500. Okay? This is my lesson for all of you that I have learned. Okay? S&P 500 is going to return about 8 or 9% every year. Some years it's going to go up 30%. Other years it's going to go down 30%. If you buy, put it in a drawer, don't look at it for 10 years. Every 10 years, on average, based on the last 100 years, your money's going to double. So I am telling you guys to do, by and large, what I do, which is buy S&P 500 index funds, which outperform the average market-based investor, that is hedge funds, everything else, over time. The S&P 500 outperforms almost all of them, which is why I have my money there. And don't look at it. Don't worry about the price. I saw where Dave Portnoy's like, oh, don't look at the price. Look. And he's like, oh, that's bullshit. Like, everybody looks, okay. But I own right now 4 homes, okay? Just full transparency. I've got the house that I'm in right now, which I owe, I think, $500,000 on because I have a 2.5% mortgage, and I don't want to pay it off, even though I've got the cash to be able to do it, because a 2.5% mortgage is cheaper than I could ever buy. We are building a monster house, and by we, I mean my wife. It's like 20,000 square feet. It's a little bit closer to town, a little bit closer to the kids' school. I'm going to have like a 5,000 square foot studio as a part of that. It's going to be one of the coolest studios. I got a green room. I got to walk up. I'm going to be able to do unbelievable shows there. I think we're supposed to move into that house sometime around October. Bunch of athletes are going to be living by me. It's a 20-house armed security. My wife wants armed security around us all the time because there's too many crazy people out there who evidently want to kill me. So we're going to have armed security all the time. Fabulous house. Probably will sell this one that I'm in now that we've been in for a decade, okay? I don't know if I'll take a mortgage out on that house or not. It depends on what the current mortgage rates are. I've got a fully paid for 2,500 square foot place in Rosemary Beach, Florida that I bought, I don't know, like 7 or 8 years ago. And I have will be a fully paid for home in Alice Beach, Florida, which is one back from the Gulf. I should have bought a Gulf front lot. Instead, I'm one back from the Gulf. Fabulous, sunny sunset views. That place is supposed to be done around July. I'll own it outright, okay? The reason why I bring up the fact that I have 4 houses is because I don't look at the price of any of my houses on a day-to-day basis. I'm confident that I've got good real estate holdings. I also own a lot of percentages of a lot of different commercial real estate buildings, including one that we sold down on Broadway a while back to Garth Brooks. Remember, I had a sports bar. We sold that. Garth Brooks bought it. We owned the land. We made a ton of money as an investment group on that, right? I think we bought it for $8 million and sold it for $50 million. You can go look up that. Took an $8 million purchase and then sold it for $50 million a few years later. Broadway has been an incredible moneymaker. I saw today where the prices have continued to go up, unbelievable rates. My point on that is when you buy real estate, you trust that you are buying a good asset, and then you don't worry about the day-to-day price of it. And so I'm telling you how to really build wealth. It's buy index funds. If you're going to invest in the stock market, put them off to the side. People say, oh, well, you talked about the fact that the stock market was bad under Biden. Yeah, it was. For 2 years, the average return of stocks was down. I said this on Piers Morgan's show today. If on, what did I jot down? October 7th, 2026. If on October 7th, 2026, the stock market prices are below where they are right now in 18 months, and if inflation is up, I'll go on Piers Morgan's show and my radio show and this show in a clown outfit. I will dress up as a clown. I will come on with you with like a crazy clown makeup and a wig and a hair, and I'll say, you know what? I was wrong. I was wrong. It's 1 month until the 2026 elections at that point in time, and I will say I was wrong. I don't think I'm going to be wrong, but I'll put that on the line, right? My money is legitimately where my mouth is. I think what you are going to see is that the market has wildly overreacted to this situation. And I think by the time we get to probably summer, I think the market will be humming along. I think we'll have new trade agreements reached. And I think that the market will come roaring back. And I believe that people who held their water and or put more money into the stock market, much like I told you to do during COVID, when I said this is crazy, the stock market has wildly overreacted, I'm putting more money into the market. I'm putting more money into the market now. If you have money on the side, I think it's a good time to invest. If you don't, I think it's a good time to hold and just ride it out and recognize that unless you felt super poor last year at this time, you have basically the exact same amount of money in your investments right now as you did 1 year ago. Okay? And unless you were like on April 15th of last year, oh my goodness, I'm so poor, I have no money, I don't know how I'm going to live, you have the exact same money now if you've been in the market as you did then. And I think you're going to have more. Now, if you're one of those people out there that wants to like day trade or you want to try to time the market, I think what the data reflects is that you are going to fail. Because what happens most of the time, and listen to people way smarter than me about this, listen to Warren Buffett, what happens most of the time is people who engage in emotional reaction, they sell near the bottom, because they're looking at it and they're saying, oh my God, I should have sold 6 months ago. If I had sold 6 months ago, I'd have X more dollars. or they buy at the absolute peak of the market because they keep waiting, they keep waiting, they keep waiting. They're saying, oh my goodness, I should have bought. And then emotionally you get in. What you should do is dollar cost average. Buy all the time. And over time, you're going to make 9 or 10%. That's what or 8, 9, 10%. That's what I tell my kids. Every 10 years, your money should double in S&P 500 index funds. That's what I do. So to me, like, this is not a tough decision. I'm going to ride it out. I'm going to put more money in. I believe in American exceptionalism, and I think Donald Trump is going to eventually get better deals for the average American than exist right now. And if you doubt me, just look at all the stories about Trump. Trump recognizes something's wrong. He comes in, he tries to address it. That creates disruption because most politicians don't do anything. And then he ends up with us in a better spot than we would have been otherwise. This is what the whole history of Trump is. He does something, people wildly overreact. They're like, oh my goodness, our democracy is going to end. Oh my goodness, he doesn't believe in the Supreme Court. He's not. They tell you everything that is crazy. Trump behaves logically, rationally. You can criticize Trump for a lot. Do you really think the guy doesn't understand interest rates? Do you really think the guy doesn't understand negotiating leverage? Do you really think the guy doesn't understand basic economics? Try to build a building in New York City. Most people could never accomplish that. Okay? So I believe what's going to happen is 18 months from now, I think the stock market will be appreciably more than it is now. Nobody knows for sure. There have been decades. Go back and look at the 1970s when things didn't go well. And then there have been times, look at the 80s, the 90s, 2000s, look at how stock market prices took off. But 25 years ago, we had the dot-com implosion, right? Stock prices have skyrocketed on the hopes of AI increasing the efficiency of business in massive ways. Is it possible that AI is the new internet era, right? Everybody spent all this money saying the internet was going to change everything. It did, but the valuations got so out of control that it took years for the stocks to come back. Yeah, it's possible. I don't claim to have a crystal ball. What I can tell you is if you believe in history over the last 100 years or so, we're going to grow about 8 or 9%. And by the way, if you don't want to be long America, where are you going to be long? Are there other countries you would rather have your money in? I can't imagine any. So my position on this is it's not a very difficult call. I think you should hold S&P 500 funds, and over 10 years, you're going to double your money. And if you're old, you shouldn't be in the stock market. I mean, people out there are like, oh, I was planning on retiring. Like, why are you in the stock market? If you were going to retire, pull your money out of the stock market. When I am 70 years old, I don't think that I'm going to have as much money invested in the stock market as I do. I will have a lot of it pulled out. And let me say something else too. I mentioned homes. You're probably not looking at your housing value on a day-to-day basis. I'm also invested in a lot of private equity. Private equity is companies that have not yet gone public, often smaller, that have raised money. The most successful guy from my law school class, he now owns the Phoenix Suns. He's got a ton of different funds that I'm invested in. I'm invested in a bunch of real estate funds. I don't even know what the value of that is on a day-to-day basis. So a lot of wealthy people get access to private equity. We can't even see what the value is on a day-to-day basis of all that bucket of companies that we are invested in, because there isn't a daily valuation on that. Now, I'm also invested in XAI, SpaceX, a lot of these other private companies through private funds. By and large, it's hard to see what the valuation of those companies is either. I'm buying them on the idea that eventually they're going to go public and there's going to be a payoff. But maybe I'm just rare in that I'm very comfortable having lots of assets that have an unquestionable value, because what's rare is actually the public market where there is a minute-by-minute valuation of your investments. More of my money is in real estate and private equity than is in the public stock market. So I look at it and I say, like, certainly I have a much higher risk tolerance than the average person, and I would prefer that my public market dollars be higher. But any given snapshot of a daily valuation is as likely to be wrong as it is to be right. And if you own private real estate, your home or commercial real estate, you're not sitting around on a day-to-day basis, like looking at this in any kind of way. And so, anyway, my advice is hold S&P 500 index funds. If you're too emotional, don't look at the stock price. Don't look at your 401k, but every 6 months. Don't look at your 401k, but every year. And over time, I think you will be happy at the results in a way that you will not looking at day to day. So I think this is basic common sense. And anyone out there who sees otherwise is flat out wrong. A couple of other stories that are out there. Carmelo Anthony, I didn't talk about this. This is from Frisco, Texas. But I do think it's worthy of contemplation and discussion because it's such an awful story. Two 17-year-olds were at a track meet in Frisco, Texas, which I'm told is about 30 miles north of Dallas. And one kid, Austin Metcalf, says to another kid, Carmelo Anthony, that he's sitting in the wrong place. And I'm paraphrasing what the media reports have said. And the Carmelo Anthony kid says, basically, don't tell me what to do. And if you try to move my stuff, you'll regret it. He then pulls a knife out and stabs this 17-year-old kid, Austin Metcalf, to death. Now, stories like these hit home for me because I've got three boys, a 17, a 14, and a 10-year-old. 11th grade, 8th grade, 4th grade. So I have kids that are in the exact same grade. I have a kid that is in the exact same grade as these kids that got into a fight and one of them got stabbed. I'm writing a book now about young men and why they broke towards Trump. And so I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. Obviously, I spend a lot of time thinking about young men and their future because I've got three boys who will eventually become young men. And this story is just so profoundly awful because it never should have happened. The only reason this is a story is because one kid is black and one kid is white. And very often that occurs in the media, that they grab stories that otherwise would not be stories and turn them into stories because of the racial dynamics in play here. And this Carmelo Anthony kid is accused now of murder. And Austin Metcalf died in his twin brother's arms, having been stabbed right in the chest and immediately bled out. If this had been two black kids, if Carmelo Anthony had stabbed another black kid, nobody would have heard about it because there's so much black on black crime that for the most part, it almost never makes news. And what is going on here with crime, particularly as it pertains to young men? Dads are absent. I think if you look at the data, the lack of dads in a household overwhelmingly impacts young, single parent household boys. Now, every time I talk about this, a ton of moms reach out and they say, I'm raising boys and my kids are doing fantastic and more power to you. Individual circumstances of success don't erase the totality of the evidence, which is when young boys grow up without dads in their house, they suffer enormously. They commit crimes of violence at an exponentially higher rate. And we need to have a major national conversation about rates of violence in America that I think are happening to a large extent because there aren't enough dads in the home. And that is overwhelmingly true in black households, where huge percentages, the majority of kids are born out of wedlock to single moms that do not have dads in the household. And this, if you really want to have an interesting conversation about it, is not racism, because the rates have skyrocketed in the black community since the 1950s and the 1960s. It's, in my opinion, taking the black dad out of the household and putting the government in as the otherwise parent. But the data reflects black, white, Asian, Hispanic levels of young male violence almost perfectly correspond to absence of father figures in the household. And so men are failing young men. And the result is violence like this. And it has to be addressed. It has to be fixed. And we need to have a major national conversation about it. Because if you're going to address violent crime in America, you have to acknowledge where it is coming from. Overwhelmingly, it's committed by young black men. This is the reality. And overwhelmingly, it's created and committed by young black men without dads in the household. Now, again, white, Hispanic, Asian households without fathers also have high rates of violent crime. But if we want violent crime to come down, and I would imagine the vast majority of people do, then we have to address where violent crime is coming from, particularly in young men. It is coming from young black men. And the only reason this is a story is because Austin Metcalf happened to be white. If this was a black kid stabbing another black kid, nobody would have ever heard about it because it's so common. Okay? So, the overwhelming amount of young black men that are victims of crime are being killed by other young black men. And people say, oh, you can't. Look, men, young men, 16 to 40, commit almost all violent crime in America, right? Grandmas ain't killing people. White, black, Asian, Hispanic. Women, by and large, aren't killing people. Doesn't mean it doesn't happen. But nobody out there is like, hey, you know what? The police are sexist because they happen to arrest men for 95% of violent crime. No, it's because that's who's doing the crimes. It's an awful story. Needs to happen much less seriously. Dire Wolf. Front cover, I believe, Adam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, front cover of the Time magazine. The dire wolf is back after 10,000 years. It was extinct due to, my understanding is, modern technology. They have managed to bring it back after 10,000 years. This is incredible, and it suggests that we might be heading towards some sort of Jurassic Park-like future where we can bring back animals that have otherwise gone extinct. I know there's been a lot of talk about bringing back the woolly mammoth. If we're bringing back the dire wolf, and I know there's always disputes about, hey, did we get it right? Is it 100% right or not? This is pretty unbelievable that we now have the ability to bring back extinct animals. I see it as very much of a positive. Now, inevitably, this means that I'm going to be on a hike and I'm going to get killed by a dire wolf, and everybody's going to be like, see, this is what happened. Clay Travis said the dire wolf was coming back, was a positive. Animal Thunderdome style, I'm now probably cursed to end up getting killed by the dire wolf. But I actually do think this is incredible, a testament to positive use of our technology, and I am very pro bringing back the dire wolf, the woolly mammoth, and other animals that have gone extinct to be able to have them once again roaming the world, whether it's in some sort of a zoo or other locations. Now, Adam is pointing out the Jurassic Park line is your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could that they didn't stop to think if they should. That in and of itself, very, very funny to reference Jurassic Park. But I would be in favor of bringing back dinosaurs too. And I would like to go to a Jurassic Park style park one that the dinosaurs did not escape from. But I don't think that we're very likely to be able to bring back dinosaurs in my life. But Direwolf, very positive. All right. Love all of you. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm on the Gators -1.5 tonight. You heard my Prize Picks pick. Prize Picks code OutKick, $50 when you play $5. California, Texas, Georgia, Florida. Y'all can play along. Get hooked up now. Appreciate all of you. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. This has been OutKick, the show.